So in a lot of ways, I guess you could say this is like, Harry Potter.
Is that what you wanted to do?
That's it.
All right. That was our... it wasn't planned at all. We're just in the middle of recording right now.
Yeah.
And then the Pope said, "That's not my hat. That's my wife." Well, hello and welcome to A Whole New Pod, the podcast all about
Disney Channel original movies.
And always having the most grabbing openings. I want to listen to the rest of this fucking episode.
Like Harry Potter. I love Harry Potter.
I also love... Oh, that's not true. I was going to say, I love myself, Lucas Melby, but I'm just Lucas Melby. Let's not say too positive stuff about ourselves. And I'm joined by...
Jacob Telajun.
Well, almost got there.
Almost. Teased you a little bit there.
Almost got the real name. As Jacob and I said in tandem, we are the podcast where we are chronicling every single Disney Channel original movie, going from the oldest to the newest, and whenever we finish, we'll just continue updating it. We are in the final movie of 2007, which was really the year of the sequel for DCOMs. Return to Halloween Town, I think, came at the end of 2006, but including this episode, of the last 6 episodes we've done, 5 of them have been sequels to Disney Channel original movies.
Like they've really...
The only original one we've done recently is Jump In.
And what was the first sequel? Xenon? Was that the first sequel I ever had? I believe that was a while ago. Or it's between Xenon or Halloween Town 2. I can't remember which would have been first. But actually, this, I believe, according to what I read on some Wikipedia pages, the last non-musical DCOM sequel that has been made. Wow.
So it's Twitches 2 is what we have watched today. 2, spelled T-O-O, which both doesn't really make sense why they would do it that way, because the whole point of the Twitches is that they're twins, so you could just say Twitches 2 normally, but it being T-O-O is dumb enough in a way that I find funny, and probably is one of the only things I actually liked about this movie. Because this movie, it was a stinker.
Yeah, this is, like, it was rough.
In
a lot of ways, it was like Harry Potter, but in a lot of ways, it isn't.
No, I mean, it's just like the first movie. We definitely drew those comparisons. One of my first notes is, not Hogwarts. We're seeing not Hogwarts. We already talked about that in Return to Halloween Town. But I think this is probably the worst one we've watched. And I didn't like Johnny Capahala back on board that much, but this is the worst one we've watched probably since the first Twitches, which was a few months ago. And I'd say this one is probably worse than that one.
Yeah.
They both have remarkably little happening in them, but the unimportant stuff that happens in the first movie, I think I liked a little more than the very unimportant stuff that happens in this movie.
Yeah. I don't know. That just... a lot of doors. A lot of shadows.
A lot of shadows and lots of doors.
That's my biggest takeaway.
And T and Tamara, we talked about whether they would have had a fan base in 2005, but hey, let's keep it going in 2007. Everybody loves Tia and Tamara.
They probably did, though, honestly. Like they were still, like, Sister was a big show. Like, there's no denying
But I'm pretty sure
that.
Sister ended at least probably by, like, 2002 or something.
I don't know. There still had to have been, I don't know. Can you say
people haven't cared about Tia and Tamara until the Doja Cat song.
Oh, God.
Let's get into it. I want to get this over with.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
I thought it was a fun exercise when we did a High School Musical 2 of being like, hey, what was the first High School Musical about? We don't even need to do that with Twitches 2, because the whole beginning of the movie is just the most uninspired of, like, here's exactly what happened in the first movie.
It's the same scenes. It's just...
Yeah, it's reused footage with... I don't actually remember who the narrator was, because...
Yeah, who knows? Who cares?
A lot of my stuff, a lot of my notes will say, I don't care, I wasn't paying attention, and that includes here. Roughly, the first movie, ironically, has some similarities to Sister of 2 twins separated at birth, meet in a clothing shop.
Yada, yada.
They find out that they have a magical mom in another world named Miranda.
And a father trapped in the shadow realm.
Who is dead.
Who is
almost like Harry Potter, except they have one living parent, which is very decom. Then their evil uncle Thantos, who maybe married their mom. I don't fully remember. Played by Patrick Fabian. Best part of the first movie. Spoiler alert. Also the best part of this movie is the villain, and lots of bad CG, lots of bad green screen, which we're seeing in this recap here. And somehow they beat him. Spoiler alert. They'll somehow beat him in this one too.
Yes. He's not that good. He just gets beat all the time.
Yeah. So we end the bad CGI by transitioning to slightly better CGI, where we're seeing the secret dimension, the world of Coventry.
There is a lot of CGI and green screen. I think more than the first one, definitely.
Probably. I don't know. I don't care to really break it down. We see Miranda within the castle of Coventry, and we get what I would call Thantos vision of, it's an evil shadow person. But when we see stuff from the Shadow's point of view, it's all extremely slow frame rate footage.
It's like spinning. Stuff is like spinning, too. It's always like whirling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of...
It was like nauseous. It was almost nauseating.
It's what Sam Raimi is known for as far as like Evil Dead 1, of like the evil spirit vision, except it looks like absolute fucking shit.
It's really bad.
But something is following... Miranda, we're pretty sure it's...
I don't think we're stepping on too many toes. I don't think there's too many people out here that are going to be willing to defend Twitches 2. But I could be wrong.
We could be wrong.
And we do not apologize.
We have a good enough track record of being mostly positive or trying to find positive stuff in some of these movies that when we get a Twitches 2, we can fucking shit on it as much as we want. But something's following Miranda. We don't actually even fully know. We are pretty sure it's Thantos doing this, but some of it is a little up in the air about who these shadows always are.
Yeah, so we see these shadows like the whole movie, but yes. So right now, like, we're seeing them and we're thinking they're bad, right? Like, we think they're evil. It's shadows. But it could have...
I mean, shadows, that's bad.
It might be their
Thantos
father.
Thantos is in the shadow line.
It could be their father.
We cut to Cameron in the real world. She is the rich Twitch. And she is with her parents, who were, I think, both in the original movie. Her dad had some weird, like, awkward moments that weren't really funny. And it was just like he had two of them. And it's like, he's the quirky dad, but he wasn't in it enough anyways. Cameron, just out and open, practicing her magic at breakfast. The housemaid is there. Cameron doesn't seem to be worried about her seeing her do magic. And she's bad at magic.
That's kind of the whole premise of the movie. They don't care who sees. Like in Halloween Town, right? You had to be more secretive. You'd get in trouble. You'd have to go in front of the council if people saw your magic. But in this one, they just don't care.
That could be said about this whole movie. They don't care who sees this movie. Doesn't matter. Tia and Tamara, they got that paycheck.
Yeah.
But she breaks a bunch of dishes when she's trying to clean up, and it's all, she's so bad at magic. I really gotta learn me some new magic. We learned that Alex is living in the house with her. So she's with the rich parents because I believe she didn't have any parents, or like her mom had died in the first movie. She was living with her roommate, Lucinda, who is mentioned only in name. I guess Lucinda didn't need that extra rent money. It's okay for Alex to have moved out.
Yeah.
But Cam gets a vision of Alex and that there's a shadow coming for her. So then she runs up and basically does some spell to ward off the shade and pushes her bed up against the wall to like smush her. So again, lots of funny, screwed up magic stuff.
Hilarious stuff.
It's probably at least a quarter of the movie.
Peak comedy and decom.
And then they get into a fight because it's like, why did you do that? Oh, there was a shadow. A shadow. What's the big deal about a shadow? Were you not in the first movie? There was always bad shadows around. But they're fighting and they're doing different spells. One, she gets turned into like Violet Beauregard. She's a big blue person.
She is.
The other one gets a tail and back and forth.
It's kind of in on the furry stuff. That was kind of fun.
I'll leave that to Jacob. We commented in the first movie that it was weird how old Tia and Tamara were playing high schoolers in that movie.
Yeah.
This one, it's the first day of college for Alex.
So they're still like 18, but I wonder how old they were in real life.
And there's certain comments from characters in the movie about how recent they took care of Thantos. But we don't actually know. We think it at least has to be a few months. That maybe they were like seniors in the first movie.
But
summer break,
it is weird.
now going to college.
Like, it's like 3, 4, 5 times, like, where it's like, yeah, it seems like we just did that yesterday. Oh, we just defeated the darkness.
And it's not played as, like,
it's
a
weird.
joke. Because when we were watching it, said it makes sense if they were like, wow, we just did that yesterday. It was yesterday. But they don't. They seem to set up for a joke, and then there's nothing there.
Weird.
Which is the bread and butter of Karsh and Ileana. Remember them? They crash into the swimming pool because they're rich parents. Yes. They got a swimming pool. And Ileana, I only know this from like IMDb, but she was recast in this. She's not the Ileana from the first one. And they're a couple, and they're very annoying still. Karsh has some moments where he kind of made me chuckle, but for the most part, they're actually kind of dicks in some scenes that we get to later on. They tell them that they're getting married, which I think maybe came up at the end of the original movie. My notes here says, who cares?
Who cares? It's not even the same lady. I like the other lady more than this one. Like, the other one seemed more quirky. This one's just like, I don't know.
I couldn't tell you any discernible difference between them.
Yeah, I don't know. They're just...
Cam is... Can't remember what... Alex is the writer, which only... I think kind of comes up here, but Cam is the artist.
Oh, okay.
And she has drawn something, and she always gets these, like, I don't know, visions or spirits moving within her.
Right? Wasn't she drawing a door?
Yes, and Ileana and Karsh comment on that there's a crest that she's drawn, and it's the crest of their father, Aaron. Oh, Aaron, what could this mean? Well, whatever, you should come to Coventry. Your mom wants to see you, Miranda. Well, it's my first day of school, so see ya. So Alex goes to school. But then Cameron goes to which world? Coventry.
Yes.
We get to see, we commented in the first movie that there's all this talk about, like, we got to save all of Coventry. They're in the shadow world or whatever. But we never actually see any characters other than, like, the main 5. Here we do finally see background actors and, like, service people working at the castle. So Coventry feels a little more lived in, where literally in the first movie it was Miranda, Thantos, Karsh, and Ileana, and that was it. Miranda says, hey, you're wearing like street clothes. You gotta dress like a princess. Turn into a princess. And then Karsh and Ileana, they're gonna teach you magic because you're so fucking bad at it. And then while she's getting changed, Miranda kind of is to Karsh and Ileana like, I think Thantos is back. Oh no, not Thantos. But they have to keep it a secret from the Twitches for a while because otherwise there really wouldn't be... I guess it doesn't really make the movie happen. It just... Because even when they find out that Thantos is back, there's still not a lot of urgency with what they're doing. They kind of still have scenes of them just doing a bunch of dumb bullshit. This movie just makes me tired.
Exhausting.
At college, Alex has some mistaken identity issues. What are you doing? Jake is playing like fucking phone games during this episode. So then he's like, exhausting.
This is my interest in this episode.
One of these fucking things. There's still a fucking expectation that I gotta run through this goddamn movie.
Sorry,
this is all staying in the episode.
That's okay. That's fine.
So Alex is getting mistaken for Cameron at this college. Cameron's ex-boyfriend.
Yes,
is finding her, and she finds out later from a friend.
He does
of Cameron.
call her the different name. He's not confusing her.
No, he just says like, "Hey," and she's like, "Hey, yourself." And then Cameron, I don't know if this other friend is in the first movie, but she shows up and says, I know who you are, you're Alex, because you dress poor. That's Cameron's ex-boyfriend.
Yes. At one point she says, I've been invited to like 6 parties. 3 people have asked me out already. My sister must be really popular.
Which is then, it's like, why isn't Cameron at school? Because this is the first day of school for Alex.
Yeah.
Does this mean that she took a gap year? Is this the second semester of the year?
They all know her. They all recognize her.
They all know Cameron, but Cameron's in Coventry because she's skipping class or something.
So she's definitely been to college there before. How would they know her? It's very confusing.
It's because this movie's dumb and bad. while she's getting mistaken and having some like lovey-dovey eyes towards this guy who looks like an older version of Corbin Blue, Cam is in Coventry doing magic and stuff, and she meets Dimitri, who introduces himself and says he's a prince and gives her some magic tips that seems to help Cam not break as much stuff. Cam leaves, and then we find out from a different butler-looking guy that Dimitri's actually a waiter or a butler, and he doesn't have any magic.
Yeah.
So much of what was happening here, I like begrudgingly was taking notes because it's like, I know this will somewhat come into play with what happens later on, but I could not care less about anything that's happening. And actually, there's actually stuff here that isn't really that important. Like the ex-boyfriend largely does not matter for the greater story. It's more for there to be continued scenes that don't really matter to happen. Anyways, that ex-boyfriend, though, we think maybe, did he get attacked by a shadow person?
We do see a shadow, like, hovering above him. Him and her were talking. You know, they say goodbye to one another or whatever. But then as we see the shadow, and then, like, all of a sudden, it's like he's, like, possessed because he, like, runs after him. He's like, hey, I'm going to give you a ride or walk you home. Let me walk you home.
And then we see a gigantic CG shadow behind him
as they walk home.
And it's possible I wasn't paying that close of attention in the movie, but I have faith the movie does a bad job of keeping us up to speed about the significance of this boyfriend maybe getting possessed by Thantos, ? Well, we have some theories about what happens.
We do have some theories.
Back in Coventry, Cameron climbs up a mysterious tower. And then at the top of the tower, there's a shade.
She throws her hair out the window and a prince climbs up.
There's always a shade. There's always a tower. And the shade drops a ring, a gold ring.
Yes.
That has a moon on it, which is the crest of the dad.
The father, yes.
Because Aaron, their father, was the moon. The mom was a son.
And then what were the two girls?
They each have a son. One has a son, one has a moon.
Yes.
I don't give a fuck. So this is further maybe, could this be our father in this other world? But wouldn't technically, like, Thantos still be of, like, the same house crest as Aaron or whatever?
Oh, that would explain things.
Yeah.
So Papa is maybe somewhere else.
Well, the plot is continuing a bit because Ileana and Karsh finally tell the Twitches that Thantos is back, but he's in the Shadowland, but he's still back.
Yeah.
Well, I don't fully understand how the Shadowland works because he's in Coventry, but he's in the Shadowland of Coventry, but that's still, I don't know, it's even more confusing with the metaphysics than Kingdom Hearts.
Very confusing.
So they go back to Coventry, where then they talk to Miranda, and she says that the Twitches, they have to stop Thantos. They're the only ones who can, for reasons that are never really made clear. There's lots of what feel like rules in this movie, but it's just rules that, like, the movie tells you this is what needs to happen because of, they don't even say, like, why. It's just is what is going to happen, and it can only happen the way it happens in this movie.
The rest of the movie couldn't possibly happen if these things didn't happen.
And related to that, it's just a thing that happens and is important. There's a solar eclipse coming up, which means that that's the time when they will be most powerful.
Correct.
Because I guess there's
sun
and moon kind of imagery, but they beat Thantos in the last movie without any kind of eclipse shenanigans going on.
The power of love.
To beat him, they are supposed to learn the Vanquishing spell, which will destroy everything in the Shadowlands.
Yeah.
But this is where Alex comes in and says, I think Dad's in the Shadowlands. And their mom, Miranda, says, no, he's not! You're wrong! Shut the fuck up!
See, and like, why? We had multiple times where we thought maybe different people were, like, possessed or evil. And she was definitely one. She acted very strange.
It was very Jacob and me. To suspect multiple people of potentially being evil in this movie. But it just, I think, more lends itself to just bad writing or bad acting.
Yeah.
Not so much that I think the writers are making you think that these people are evil, because I don't think the target audience are hardened movie viewers like us, where we're suspecting stuff left and right. I don't think you going into Twitches 2 thinking that there's going to be some surprise reveal about who the villain is, which there isn't. It's Thantos. He's the villain from the first movie. At least Calabar's revenge, we find out it's Calabar's son and not just Calabar himself. Well, maybe I would have liked if it was just Calabar himself. Part of why Alex is suspecting this is because of the ring that was dropped by the Shade.
Yeah.
Whatever, Karsh is going to teach them the spell anyways, and wouldn't you know it, they screw up and they light stuff on fire and a bunch of silly stuff happens.
Yeah, and some of those little antics of like them attempting to do spells and like whatever, would happen, to them getting stuck in walls and...
So you're saying that's fun?
I don't know, it was maybe like my favorite part.
I've had a long week. So I did not find it fun.
We liked her getting stuck in the walls. I mean, at least I did.
You can speak for your own certain proclivity. Then through various shit, they learn that Dimitri's actually a butler, mostly because as they're talking to him, then Karsh and Ileana are yelling at him, Hey, get me a chicken salad sandwich.
Hey, you poor.
Why aren't you wearing your apron? What the fuck are you doing? Chip, chop, chip. Hurry the fuck up.
For real, though. They were...
Service down here has gone down way, and it's like, it just makes them seem bad, and that doesn't really, like,
it does
off.
make them seem like rude people. Are they evil, too? Are they possessed now, both of them? Is everybody just evil?
It was more that I was laughing about...
was the only good one?
I was laughing about how mean they were being, but really they weren't. That's the only time they're really funny, even though like they're supposed to be funny in other parts of the movie. So he runs off because he's embarrassed that they found out that he's both a servant and he doesn't have magic.
Yeah.
And then Alex catches up to him.
At one point, though, doesn't he teach them how to fix a broken...
Well, he just gives pointers because we'll find out that he does get magic back, and it's implied that he once had magic, but Miranda then took all of the poor... Well, we'll find that out in this next scene.
Yeah.
So Alex runs up to catch up to him because Cam's the one who likes Dimitri, but she's just like, oh, he's working. I don't want to bother him.
Yeah.
So Alex says, hey, what's going on? And he explains, oh, well, Miranda has taken everybody's magic except, like, the royal families because... she thinks it makes it safer. Well, clearly that worked out well when Thantos sent everybody to the fucking Shadowland or whatever in the first movie. So then he says, I just really like Cam, and I wish I had magic of my own. Hey, could you borrow me some of your magic, Alex? And Alex, maybe somewhat fairly, suspects that he is Thantos, because I was already kind of like, is he going to be evil?
He did seem evil. He did seem like sketchy in different parts.
And she magics him into a sugar bowl.
Yes.
And then Karsh and Ileana come in and say, what the fuck's going on here? Oh, he must be Thantos. And they say, no, your mom's also just a dick like us and took the magic away from everybody. So it's okay for him to have asked you for magic help because he has no magic.
Yeah. And then we see him inside this sugar cup. He's like all like bunched up.
He's got a squeaky voice.
I need a chiropractor now.
And we do not see the outcome of him being in the sugar bowl.
No.
The scene ends. He is still in the sugar bowl.
Yeah.
The next time we see him, he is not in the sugar bowl.
And it's not mentioned how he got out.
No, and it
would have been fun if he was like, like cracking his neck, and stuff like that.
I knew he was going to show up again, but this movie was so bad all of it, it's a bad movie, that I was like, what if we don't ever actually see Dimitri again?
We never get closure.
And then, maybe that's like the end credits stinger is, hey, could somebody get me out of here?
That would have been good. I would have liked that.
Yeah.
That would have been the best part of the credits.
I liked, but they don't do anything with it, the upper class, the 1% of Coventry, essentially. They're the ones who is holding all this magical power for themselves. But they don't really like dive deep into like why the mom was doing that and like how it's kind of fucked up or whatever.
Yeah.
So slight points given, but immediately taken away for the movie.
Yes.
I say to their credit that there's a kind of fun scene where Alex is meeting up with the ex-boyfriend because despite that, hey, Thantos is back and he's going to kill everybody in Coventry or whatever. Let's go do some silly boyfriend stuff. So she's talking with the ex-boyfriend. Cameron sees Alex doing this. Alex gets up. Cameron uses magic to make herself look like Alex's clothes and everything. Goes and sits down to the boyfriend. And then pretending to be Alex, and then Cameron sees that, or no, Alex sees that Cameron is pretending to be her. You you get what this is, that then they both are pretending to be each other, making fun of each other, being like, I'm a rich snob bitch.
Yeah, and then like talking and goofy, like, he's like, don't you just love my shoes? I just love my shoes, don't you? And then,
and the boyfriend's like, I don't know what's going on.
He's like, I'm going to
get
out of here. Yes, I'm going to leave. Yeah, that was a fun scene, I guess.
It was fun, but at the same time, it's like, why are kind of the thing in video games of, you have to save the world, but here's 80 side quests you could do in the meantime instead of going to fight the final boss or whatever.
And this is one, maybe the second time we get, they get out of the lunchroom and they walk off to kind of the side and then they switch back bodies. This is one, maybe the first or second time that other people actually see them doing their magic.
Yeah.
And they crash their bikes, which is a callback to the first movie.
Yep, thanks to IMDb trivia. Otherwise, I would not have noticed that. This time they made 2 people crash on bikes, where in the first movie they only made 1 person crash on bikes.
Double trouble. Always up to Double Trouble news date.
Well, anyways, my next note says, I hate this movie.
that was a good scene.
And we had checked the time at this point, and it was 45 minutes into the movie, and essentially so little had happened.
Yeah.
We talk about how sometimes it's nice that
we haven't even talked about all the doors they've gone through yet.
That's one of my lighter notes.
That's okay.
But we talk about with these sequels is sometimes there's like too much happening at the start of these movies.
Yeah.
Where we don't need to be introduced to characters or whatever because we've already seen them in other movies.
That is true.
And then it's immediately we would be. So if this was like Return to Halloween Town, maybe it's like immediately be like Thantos is back, and then shit would be happening, and probably would still be happening too quickly. Where this movie, there's a lot happening at the beginning, but it's all a bunch of dumb bullshit of like breaking plates, eating pancakes or whatever, people shooting into pools and.
Yeah, a lot of getting wet.
Not as much getting wet as in High School Musical, too.
That's fair. That is accurate.
We go back to the drawing that Cameron made that they trace back to a part of the castle that looks like this drawing, but it's just a wall. But the drawing has a door, so they walk into a wall. Oh, wow.
A secret door.
It's a secret tunnel thing. But there's a shade in here. A ghost. So they run down the tunnel through another door, and then they find their mom on the other side. Oh, was this Dad's study? So it's like, what was the point of this?
So, okay. Why was that drawing so important? It wasn't.
So
the mother doesn't even react to them getting into this room. She's not like, oh, how'd you guys find out about this place?
So the movie...
It's very...
We'll be upfront because some of this, I think, comes into play in the next scene, which is hilarious. But the way the movie happens, there's 2 shades. One is their father. One is Thantos.
Yes.
The way the movie plays out, it seems that whenever there's a shadow in the real world, it's their father. But when there's a shadow in the fake world... It's Thantos.
Yes.
So this could be taken as, and this is how Alex interprets it, is that this is a sign from their father because it's a secret tunnel that leads to his study.
Oh.
So then, but it's actually Thantos doing that to make her think that it's her father.
You think
while in the real world, the father is giving signs that he is the Shadowlands.
Oh my God.
So it all equals out. Whichever way you interpret it, and even though like the movie is making you think of one thing, it's actually probably the other thing, but it's not in like a smart way. It's just that the way the vagueness of so much of the movie is, it can always square the circle, so to speak.
Very vague.
But the mom says, yes, this is your dad's study, and let me tell you about the first time we met.
So I wonder if you could only get to his study through that secret door.
That makes no sense. Then how did she get there?
Well, maybe she went through the door.
I guess. So maybe that's what it was.
But that's why I
Otherwise,
said, why didn't she react like, oh, how'd you guys find this place? Oh, we saw it in the drawing. You know?
Otherwise, it just feels like a very deliberate Marauder's Map kind of Harry Potter thing. But Miranda tells a story of when her and the father first met. And it's just, I don't know, they fucking danced a bunch and then he gave her a star. And I, for some reason, thought the dad in the first movie, which, in my defense, the dad was hardly in the first movie. I thought he was black for some reason, which doesn't make sense because Thantos is white. So he was white. I knew he was recast for whatever reason, but I mean, he was such a small role in the first one that probably not anybody really noticed that he was recast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just further stuff about, oh, wow, it's nice. You really did love Dad. That's cool. Alex, that is, still thinks that the shade that they've been experiencing is their father.
Yes.
Miranda, you're still like, fuck you. No, it's not. You're full of shit. It's Thantos. We're going to kill all the shadows.
She's pissed.
Back in the real world, because we're hopping back and forth so fucking much, we get only briefly mentioned the maid, but the maid...
She has two of the funniest scenes in the whole movie.
And this is her funniest scene, is the maid is knocking at the door. It goes, Snickerdoodles!
Snickerdoodles!
And we're like...
She says it like 5 times.
But and it's just the same voice clip every single time.
And
it's just Snickerdoodles! Snickerdoodles! And Alex or whoever opens the door is like, okay, geez, I'll take the Snickerdoodles. She takes the tray of cookies and
but she's
tea.
still saying it as she walks away.
And she's like walking away, but like the sound is coming, but her mouth's not moving, so we're supposed to know that, something's off about her.
Or just the editing is awful.
And
that was a funny scene.
It was funny.
I enjoyed that.
Alex, I think in Coventry at this point, she had spent the night or something. She wakes up and she is visited by a shade, and she says, to quote, take a line from DMX, she says, "Lord, give me a sign." And I think the shade draws on the condensation on the window a star.
Yeah.
She's like, "My dad gave my mom a star. It's my dad here." Then Alex tells Miranda about this, and she's still like, no, bitch. It's not your dad, it's Thantos. Alex then storms out, returns to
Halloween Town,
the other dimension. But the eclipse is coming up. Oh, remember the eclipse?
Get your
it's so
glasses,
important.
Get your shades out.
Ileana and Karsh find Cameron to say, hey, you have to get your sister back here because the eclipse is coming up. And Cameron's like, why does it have to be me? Because you're Twitches. Come on. You're the Twitches. It has to be
Twitches.
You.
Go.
So then she goes, she finds Alex. They make up through something. I didn't pay attention. Then they go back to Coventry.
Who cares? Through another door number 35.
This is my note that says all this movie is people saying shadow and then going through doors. It is so much just within this last
and doing
three.
Magic
it's like
in front of other people.
Cameron spent the night in the real world, but Alex spent the night in Coventry. But Alex got mad at her mom, so she goes through the door to the real world, and then Cameron gets found by Ileana Karsh, so then she has to go to find her, and then they go to Coventry, and sometimes they take a car to Coventry.
Wow, you have that really down.
And I hate this movie.
You understand it. You connected all the dots.
It's not magical that they go through a door that just appears. That's pretty fucking basic.
So why don't the other people? They traveled by pool, right? Or whatever that was. Why didn't they go through doors?
That's the joke, is that going through the portal in the pool is a very inconvenient place, so that they should just use doors. But Ileana and Karsh are such weirdos that they go through the pool.
That's very weird.
Isn't it quirky?
It's inconvenient.
In Coventry, then, there's an invisible force that's moving some fucking books around or something.
Yeah.
And then, it's a sign. Let's flip the book open, and they find a variation of the vanquishing spell that changes one line and be like, hey, I want to be friends with the shadow people.
Yeah, and it's like, I give you everything, right? Is this that one?
Maybe. I just remember the line being friends, but it might be like, I give my friends everything, or whatever.
Yeah.
So then, we'll do the ceremony, we'll do the big spell, but we're going to use this one because it's our dad who's the shade, right?
Yeah, Papa.
And then the eclipse is happening. The Twitches get dragged in there, and everybody's wearing glasses to
like again, this is, we get more extras. This is the most extras this series has ever had. Everybody's got their glasses on, their cool shades.
They're doing the spell. There's a bad CG twister around them.
So much bad
We
CG.
think they're going to do the alternate spell, but at the last moment where it's Cameron, she has to say the pivotal line. She's looking at her mom, and she's like, you better kill all the shadow people. And she says, vanquish them or whatever.
Yeah.
And then everything starts going crazy.
There's like a light bouncing around everywhere.
And just like, destroying a bunch of stuff. And this is why I was like, wait, is the mom actually evil? But she's not still. She's just like, no, this is what the spell does.
She's got crazy glasses on. She looks ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, no, this is what the spell does. It's just kind of scary and everybody's running around in chaos, but this is how it's supposed to be.
This is normal. It's fine.
So the Twitches are running their own separate ways. They're separated, and they say like, nope, the light is coming. And so yeah, it's not Shadow doing this, it's light bouncing around, but light destroys dark. It feels very Kingdom Heartsy, but even dumber. And I love Kingdom Hearts, but it's dumber than Kingdom Hearts.
Hater.
Alex finds a shade again. She asks the shade for help, and the shade opens another book to a transfer spell. She does this spell and says, hey, I give you everything.
Give you my
And
all.
essentially, like in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Thantos materializes from the shade and goes, you thought it was your father, Aaron, but it was me, Thantos. And I'm like, oh, thank you, because it's Patrick Fabian again from Better Call Saul, and he was the best part of the first movie, and he is in so little of this movie, but he still is just chewing the scenery, playing it up to the max, and he's the only fun part of this movie.
Yeah, and when he came, it did like he seemed like
when he came, like Jacob did.
Oh, he does. He just had like I don't know. He just seemed like a better actor, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, he's the only one of anybody in this movie other than Tia and Tamara that I know from anything else, and I know Tia and Tamara from Sister, so doesn't speak. I mean, it's a sitcom, it's a fine show, but it doesn't really speak highly of their dramatic acting ability.
Yeah.
And at least in this moment, then, Alex has no magic because she gave everything to the shade, so that now Thantos has the magic. And he's like, you dumb Twitch. Now I'm going to go kill my brother. But I thought he was going to the Shadowland, and I don't even know how they knew where he went, but she catches up with Cam, and then they go to the real world, or their world.
Through another door.
Where they go to their house, and Cam's parents are all, like, knocked over. Her dad's knocked over in a chair, and he can't get up. And it's just like, dude, just roll over and stand on the ground. The whole time, I'm like, why did he go here? We know from the first movie he does know where their house is, but what's the deal? And we find out because we see him in the room with the maid, and he's making her do like cartoon faces, and be like, blah, 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 blah.
Her face is moving very aggressively.
And it turns out that their father's shadow
was in the maid the whole
hanging
time.
on the maid. So I don't know if the movie really shows this, but we assume the ex-boyfriend's shadow
was Papa.
And then he went home with Alex
during the walk home,
and then transferred over to the
so
maid.
He just always wanted to keep an eye on them, to watch over them.
But then, this is where it fully doesn't necessarily make sense, because so far we think that all of the times the shade was in the real world, it should have been their father. But at the very beginning of the movie, there's a shade going to Alex that Cam stops by pulling her bed up. Was that Thantos?
Oh.
Because if it wasn't Thantos and it was the dad, why did the dad have to do the hitchhiking shadow thing to get back to their house when he should have known where the house was?
Good point.
So, you know what? I think this movie's bad, actually.
This movie is really bad.
So the maid runs off and it says, I don't get paid enough for this shit. And she was like the second best character.
But we see her later on.
Do we? Is she at the wedding?
Talking to the donkey.
Oh, yeah. I thought that was like, I don't know, Ileana's mom or something.
Right? I had to
I'm pretty sure you're right. So then he's there, but then I think he takes Aaron's shadow back to Coventry. So they're like, all right, well, we got to go through another door. Let's get back to Coventry.
Another one.
But they do the whole thing. Oh, we can't go through the door. We got to use the car because he shut that other portal. It doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. They get to Coventry. They can't go inside the castle.
Is this the time where they're flying in their car?
That I didn't mention that earlier.
There's a scene where they're like flying up and then they fall and then they appear there. I don't know. They had a flying car. Harry Potter like.
But not really flying. It doesn't fully make sense.
It was a falling car.
Yeah. Back and forth to Coventry. He's inside the castle, but the castle is locked from the inside, so they can't go in because of magic.
Yes.
But then Dimitri comes out of nowhere and says, hey, it's open over here. And I guess the only thing that makes sense is he does say that Miranda gave all the servants back their magic. I guess he was inside the castle and opened the door from the inside. And that's how they got in. Otherwise, I don't know how. With the rules, one of the few rules that they actually put out is says, we can't get inside or we can't get in because it's locked from the inside. That's how they get around it, I guess. Otherwise, Dimitri wouldn't have been in the rest of the movie, probably. They could have had him show up at the very end. Yeah, I don't know. This movie's a mess. It's probably come through in our recap of this. Also, I feel like shit right now, so I don't know. I've been all over the place, probably.
That's okay.
Energy drink, not sitting well with me.
Oh, no. Rumbling in the tum-tum.
Nah, I don't know. My head just fucked up.
Oof.
I'm so fucked up, man.
Oh my God.
I'm so fucked up.
Rubble without a cause.
So I think they climb up the tower that Cameron went up earlier.
Yeah.
Thantos is there with Aaron's shadow, and he just keeps doing like magic blasts at him. I mean, he's laughing, and Aaron's all,
Papa's getting wrecked.
And then there's some dumb magic battle. The girls go up there to intervene with Karsh and Ileana. Karsh and Ileana get thrown off the building, but they're hanging by a gargoyle or something.
Yeah.
I don't think Alex has magic at this point, so it's mostly
She gave Thantos,
yeah.
I give you everything when the pages were moving earlier in the
So then it's
movie.
mostly on Cameron, but then they just both get lifted up by Thantos' magic. And then Miranda comes up and has a magic battle where she's playing tug-of-war with the girls, with Thantos.
One of the girls is being hung over just the side of the castle, and then one's like over like a giant pit.
Yeah, this mysterious tower just has a well that goes all the way, presumably down to the bottom.
To the Earth's core.
Yeah, to the core of Coventry. And then Thantos does have a fun line of where he's like, "Oh, isn't it a shame when children get in the middle of family squabbles?"
Oh.
Yeah,
There
my man.
Yeah.
You're in this movie for like 10 minutes and you're
You
the
make
best
the
part.
movie.
It's
are
very
the
unclear basically what is happening. We don't really know the rules of the magic here, so it's just like flashy shit happening, and I don't even really know what happens. He kind of just lets them go, or they just...
He does. It is weird. It's like he had the upper hand. Like he had them. He could have killed them both, or like he could have made the mom choose
we don't understand the power levels of people, and it's just
he just sets them down, and then everything goes for shit to him.
So Thantos says, "Haha, Aaron has nothing." But then the girls say, "We give him everything." But really, it should only be Cameron because...
Well, yes. So
Alex doesn't have anything.
Yes, the one sister with the power grabbed the other sister, and then they're like, "Oh, now he's in trouble." And then there's like a slow motion where they grab towards Mom's hand to grab her hand as well.
So it's very, I think, similar to how
Thantos is like
the original
freaking
movie.
out, but it's all in slow motion. This is all happening in slow motion, and then as soon as they touch the hands, and instead of I give him everything, it's we give him everything, and then he just starts, and then he boom, and yeah. It is a pretty
So Aaron
wild
kind of
scene.
materializes, I think, and Thantos has a very funny face of, "Oh no!" And the slow motion is back. There's 3 orbs of light, I guess, from all 3 of them. Again, I think I don't remember much about the original movie, but I remember there being some kind of bullshit power of friendship, power of sister.
So really,
that's how they beat Thantos in the first one.
Yeah. So really, the only people that had power were Thantos, who had the one girl's power, and the dad, who had the 2 other powers.
But the power of love got Alex her power back.
Yes.
So they have a nice little family reunion. They're all hugging. But wait, Thantos is jumping through the air like Scar in The Lion King or something.
Slow-mo jump.
But then Aaron magics him down the pit, and then he just falls, and he maybe is falling forever. We don't know.
Because there's never another movie. So I
guess he loses his magic, so he can't like stop himself. Maybe. Well, Karsh and
falling.
Ileana say we don't have flying spells or landing spells, so maybe he doesn't either.
Oh.
I mean, yeah, should they have just killed him in the first one instead of sending him to the Shadowland? Should they have just 300 kicked him down a hole?
That would have been. I mean, that's what
that seems to have been the better solution here.
Yeah.
Always kill the villains.
Always kill. But they're the good people. They're Disney characters. They can't kill anybody.
But they do glorify in his death or revel in it because the girls go look down the well and then put L's to their forehead and go, "Loser."
L7 weenie. God, you love this movie.
And then we get a last bit of essentially everybody in the family, including the ex-boyfriend and Cameron's one-off friend at college, who now know that they're magical and go to Coventry.
It's very
strange.
Well, they did see them go back to Coventry before in the car, right? Yeah.
Or a door, I don't fucking know.
No, they saw the car fly up in the air or whatever.
I'm
mad.
I'm so mad that, like, I'm just irrationally angry right now. I don't know, man. It's come to this.
That was
Twitches too.
Our downfall.
But yes, it's Karsh and Ileana's wedding. Who fucking cares about these fucking characters?
No,
they were so
really...
unimportant in this movie.
Yes.
They were sometimes just straight up mean in this movie to Dimitri.
Yes.
And even I think at the end during some of these dramatic moments, Ileana is still asking Dimitri for a chicken salad sandwich when they're supposed to be fighting Thantos. It's supposed to be kind of cute and funny, but it's still just like, bitch, just leave him alone.
Once a bitch, always a bitch.
My last note is, end, please. But unfortunately, I have to report that the final lines of this movie, just like the other, is the girls going, go Twitches,
go Twitches, go. But everybody's doing it.
Karsh, Ileana, their dad, who shouldn't even really know what's going on. They're all doing the hand stuff. They're doing, they're all
around the world
with the hands.
And that's their send-off of this series. Go Twitches, go. Yes,
go
away.
You calling it a series is so weird. Because it is just 2 movies. It's technically a series. It's a franchise based on a book series. But again, apparently has very little to do with that book series. And when they mentioned it, maybe that's just how it's stylized. But they say based on the Twitches books. But the I after the TW is just a star or an asterisk. So it's like,
wow.
Based on the Twatches.
Twatches. Maybe your favorite movie of the day?
I hate this movie. I don't know if that came through clear. This movie has negatively impacted my health. I felt progressively worse and worse and worse as we've recorded this episode. So, yeah, Jacob, what do you think?
Is this your worst? Is this your least favorite movie of all time?
No. I think Ready to Run is still worse.
Does this surpass my The Color of Friendship for me?
You can only answer that.
Oh, no.
I mean, this is a magical decom, so that is automatically a base score of 4 stars.
It's gotta be above half. Love my magic, but I don't know. It is. It wasn't necessary. No, I don't know if I definitely didn't hate the first one as much as this one.
Yeah, the first one also had very weird balance and pacing of, hey, shouldn't there be more stakes? Or isn't there stakes, but nobody cares about what's happening?
Yeah.
But then there's the stuff with Cameron's throwing a birthday party.
There were some...
There's funny stuff that happens at the party, I think. I vaguely remember. But this is boyfriend at college in like 3 scenes, and only one of them is kind of fun, and... Can we just stop talking about this movie?
Well, I do want to say like one more thing. Like, it is kind of interesting, like that the director would put in like that scene with like the bicyclist, crashing. There's like a callback to the first one, but we also see a scene where like they're the statue people, like they're also in this movie too, which I think we liked in the first one. So it's kind of interesting that they did those kind of things. I guess that was maybe my favorite part that they had.
It is interesting that there was somebody who took credit for directing this movie.
Steven Spielberg.
And didn't want Alan Smitty or whatever the director. When somebody doesn't want to take credit for a movie, there was a name in Hollywood.
Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows about it now, so it's not really a thing anymore.
Was it like based on like a real person everybody just like shitted on?
No. But
it would have been better if it was.
Real quick, we already had done Never Remember, I'm pretty sure, for Twitches. And I'm just going to say Twitches 2, more like Twitches 2 Towers.
Oh my
this
God.
movie is essentially the cinematic equivalent to 9/11.
But I assume we said that they could have saved it in the first one.
I don't know.
But by this one, they gave up their powers. They gave up the powers to the Taliban.
I feel like they've committed terrorism on me. Write into us at awholenewpod@gmail.com.
Tell us how offended you are.
I'm fading quickly. Find us on Apple Podcasts. Rate us, review us, subscribe to us on there.
Subscribe.
Spotify, Stitcher, youtube.com/awholenewpod. Like, comment, and subscribe to us on there. Jacob, did I just get a notification that you have created a new Twitter account for us?
Unfortunately not.
Oh.
Well, what does it say?
I just got a notification that said AWN Pod is now following you.
I bet it's Dunstan.
So maybe Dustin has finally taken up the work of running our fucking fan... Or he's making a fan Twitter for us because Jacob's too much of a piece of shit.
Let's go. The Dunstanator gets a shout out.
Hey, I said I wanted this episode to be over because I hated this movie so much.
But
I will take time to talk shit on Twitches 2 and Jacob Television. Yeah. So I guess maybe follow us at AWN Pod. I thought Jacob was having a fun little... I thought this was why he was on his phone for all of this episode, but no, it wasn't for that.
Yeah, wow, you love to see it. Shout out to Dunstan. He's like tweeting out all of our episodes. He's tweeting out every single one in order. Oh my god, this is great.
Well, thank you, Dustin. And you know what? I'm just going to end this episode. Maybe new sign off for the podcast.
Follow AWN Pod on Twitter.
Fuck Twitches.
Fuck Twitches. Fuck Twitches.
Last month, the notorious paedophile Sidney Cook was blasted into space to spend the rest of his life aboard a one-man prison vessel, posing no further threat to children on Earth. But it was revealed that an 8-year-old boy was also placed on board by mistake and is now trapped alone in space with the monster. A spokesman said, "This is the one thing we didn't want to happen."